No early childhood classroom should be this clean, right? There's no crayons on anything or anything. Yeah, so it's just upsetting.
Childcare is in crisis in Indiana. Centers, churches, and in-home daycares have laid off staff, reduced pay, and closed their doors after the state slashed funding for vouchers for low-income families. Now everyone is at odds. Daycares are pushing for more state money, lawmakers are signaling they aren't interested, and local communities are left scrambling to solve one of the state's largest problems. I'm Dylan Piers-McCoy, an investigative education reporter at WFYI. I went to Portland, Indiana to meet Danny Savatner of Westminster Preschools. She says the toys and tiny tables in this classroom have sat mostly untouched since the center opened over a year ago.
It's heartbreaking because where are they? They're somewhere. The kids didn't go anywhere. They're here in Jay County, but I know in my heart that they're maybe down the street at a neighbor's house because that's all they can afford, and they are sitting in front of a TV all day, right? Or they maybe aren't getting the most nutritious meals when there's a beautiful place here just waiting to give them the best start to their life.
It's one of many empty classrooms at this rural daycare and preschool in Jay County. A local foundation spent more than $4 million to renovate the building in an area that had been a childcare desert. But just as it opened, Indiana froze enrollment in the state voucher program.
Well, we just got an email from the state that basically said they were freezing vouchers. It was very sudden. Of course, you're like, this can't be real, because it is literally like my worst fear was we're going to open these beautiful centers, we're going to put all this money into it, and something's, a shoe's going to drop.
Jay County is an agricultural and manufacturing community on the Ohio border. Many families there can't afford tuition without aid. The center has space for about 160 infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, but only about 30 kids are enrolled. Child Care Development Fund, or CCDF vouchers, are supposed to help low-income working parents pay for daycare. But since Indiana stopped adding children to the program, families can't get that support.
No new vouchers are being created. So, a family who has had an infant born in the last year will not probably receive any sort of eligibility for a CCDF voucher for several years.
Many child care providers didn't know it, but the stage was set for drastic state cuts years ago. Indiana used federal aid to make big investments in child care during the pandemic. The state gave vouchers to way more families, but that money was temporary, and state lawmakers chose not to fill the gap when it ran out. Now, Republican Governor Mike Braun's administration says the state has no choice but to rein in spending. Advocates like Sam Sneidman of the United Way of Central Indiana say children, families, and employers pay the price.
Putting more pressure on families will mean that some families will just choose not to work, and they will, because it will not be affordable. And that puts additional pressure on other parts of the system.
Experts say good child care can improve children's cognitive, social, emotional, and physical outcomes. High-quality programs typically have fewer children per teacher and well-trained staff, but that makes them more expensive.
The providers who tried to improve the quality of the instruction they provided, that poured into their staff to make sure they had better credentials, they're the ones who are, sort of most at risk.
Jen Palmer owns a child care in Mooresville, a small town outside of Indianapolis. Palmer says the infusion of cash during the pandemic helped her increase teacher pay to as much as $20 an hour. But that pay is unsustainable after the state cuts. Palmer isn't sure what she'll do.
Finding staff that will work $7, $8 an hour, that's not my life plan. That's not what these kids deserve. That's not what any child deserves.
The Growing Garden Learning Center is tucked back from the road with a huge yard.
When they're outside, the teachers aren't just sitting outside. They're constantly interacting with kids, teaching them language, teaching them movements.
Palmer says one reason Growing Garden stands out is because teachers know how to work with kids with differences, including those with disabilities like autism. She says they have kids who struggled in other settings and some who've been kicked out.
1, 2,
Teacher Jody Wallace leads the class. The vast majority of toddlers use dozens of words by 24 months. But the little boy Wallace is playing with isn't speaking yet. A therapist comes to Growing Garden to work with him, and Wallace tries to use techniques they've shown her.
So he has a hard time sitting still or staying engaged in any activity that we do. So if we can make it more fun for him, then he stays more engaged.
Wallace started at Growing Garden a couple of years ago. She's working toward her associate's degree in early childhood education. Palmer says she reduced staff after the state slashed funding, but the program is still in the red, and there's not much left to trim. What do you think might happen to your program if the state keeps these cuts in place?
My fear is that we will close down.
That's a fear shared by centers, churches, and home daycares across the state. Palmer and others are trying to raise the alarm and advocate for more state funding for childcare.
Wages are the only thing we can cut. Utilities, groceries, mortgages, rent, insurance, none of that can be changed.
My ministry is more preschool and toddlers, so we have a cut of about 20%. So that 20% is my pay.
But so far, that lobbying has fallen on deaf ears.
I was at attended a panel a couple of months ago with people that were in for preschool and daycare, and all they wanted was more money from the state. That's probably not going to happen. At least it's going to be very limited, so y'all need to understand that.
Republican legislative leaders say trying to improve daycare and preschool quality has driven up costs, and they hope to make care more affordable by reducing regulations, not increasing state funding. Without more money, the state agency in charge says it won't give new child care vouchers until 2027.
What we can do from an office's perspective is to be the one that says, hey, this is the reality. These are the constraints we are under. And then allow the creativeness of childcare businesses, communities, community leaders, local governments, philanthropy to come together and say, okay, how do we tackle this now?
That's exactly what leaders in Jay County are trying to do. The child care center that now sits largely empty was built by the Portland Foundation, a local philanthropy. It raised millions of dollars from the state and other supporters to renovate a former elementary school. Now Executive Director Doug Inman says the foundation is working to save the center.
We're not going to let this fail. We will be as proactively positive to make this happen as we can be.
Inman says the plan is to give scholarships to families to make care more affordable. The foundation will foot some of the bill. Inman hopes local businesses will also chip in.
I really truly wish that the Indiana General Assembly would see more of a value of pouring money into these kids when they're 1 and 2 and 3, rather than waiting until they're teenagers.
This child care center will likely survive despite state cuts. But Indiana daycares and preschools without as much community support are more vulnerable. Even Westminster Preschools, the nonprofit that runs the Jay County Center, was forced to close one of its other locations in December. Without action from state lawmakers, it's likely child cares will continue to shut their doors, leaving children and parents with fewer options. You can read more about this story and follow our reporting on child care and education in Indiana at WFYI.org.